Cody Rhodes was offered the last match for Sting. AEW now has a sponsorship deal with Sega coming up for an upcoming tag team bout. And AEW also has signed an indie wrestler that we will talk about, that and much more, including Ric Flair now signed for AEW. But before we get into it, Timekeeper, ring that bell.
Welcome to the And Still a Wrestling Podcast, your weekly podcast covering the latest in the world of professional wrestling.
Welcome back in for another week of And Still a Wrestling Podcast, where we cover all things in professional wrestling with a kind of a lean towards AEW and our favorite promotion that we have out there. Rampage, Dynamite, Collision talk, New Japan Wrestling talk, some Cody Rhodes discussion, Ric Flair back into it, legends, new and old, and indie wrestlers coming in as well, along with big-time major sponsorship announcement for AEW. A ton of news coming through. First thing I wanted to get into, fellas, as we start it, those of you who know the crew, got myself, the casual, Morgan Thomas, and we have the Oracle, Kevin, and we also have the Bret Hart apologist, or whatever name he wants to take for today, and that is Mr. Drew over on the side here. So let's start it off with something that we know that's coming up and something that's recently hit the headlines, and Sports Illustrated reported this. Cody Rhodes, on Sting's final match, he said that he was offered from AEW, the final match with Sting. I want to get your guys' thoughts on it. Is that do you feel like that would have been a good match? And I'm not sure if we mentioned this before, but who do we think will be his final bout? I think we might have teased maybe Darby Allin would be it, but I just wanted to see if you had any new thoughts going through. We'll start with you, Oracle. Was this something shocking to you that Cody Rhodes said, hey, this is one of the matches that they offered me before I left?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. He was the quote unquote measuring stick. He was the gatekeeper, yada yada. It also could be him just talking shit. I mean, who's going to back up the fact that he was told that? If that was the case, were there plans? Was it just discussed? I still believe that Sting's final match will be Darby Allin, and he'll pass the torch at that point. Cody versus Sting doesn't really do much for me. Really, anybody versus Sting that isn't Ric Flair, yeah, and I don't want it to be Ric Flair. I don't want to see that. I'm concerned that they may go that way. That's how I feel.
My opinion is when I saw it, I was like, how long ago was he offered that? Because was Cody offered that? I can believe he was offered it, but was he offered it before there was any inkling that he was leaving for WWE? Or it's was it just something in the cards? I mean, he, being the son of Dusty, it would have made a fair and fitting, I guess, person for, Sting to end his career. I mean, for that matter, it's I could argue there's still Dustin there, and those two at least have some form of history. But yeah, I'm with you. It's there aren't a lot of really good options for who Sting's final match can really be against. And yeah, I'm with you on that one, 100%. It cannot be Ric Flair. It cannot be Hulk Hogan. I know those make sense, but it's because they had such an important part of his career. But be realistic. They make about as much sense as saying that his final opponent should be Lex Luger, knowing good and well that dude's in a wheelchair now.
So it's interesting. Hold on. It's interesting that you draw a comparison between Sting and Dusty Rhodes. Why is that?
Just it's the old WCW NWA days. All those guys were, pretty close and pretty tight together.
Okay, but there was no run between Sting and Dusty that I recall.
No.
If anything, Dusty was the booker, Dusty was the commentator, but I don't recall a run. I'm just
there
curious
never
to
was.
that.
They were both baby faces the entire time. It'd be the same if you were having Ricky Steamboat go out on someone like Sting. Both of them baby faces. It's like just best chance of getting some decent match out of it. Although I'm sticking to my guns on this one, Kevin. I do not think Sting's last match is a one-on-one singles match.
And yes, I was just going to ask you, how do you think Sting is going to actually pull off a decent match? By putting him in a tag match, very similar to what Ric Flair did, I think that will hide some of his deficiencies at his age.
Yeah,
So
I
I do
100%
agree
think
that
that's what they're going to go with.
I do agree that that isn't such a bad idea.
It's like we all kind of thought the Sting and Darby Allin versus Christian and Swerve on, what was it, All In. We kind of thought that was going to be the final last hurrah, and that's in the way they did that match. That made sense to me, as that's how we're going to let Sting bow out in a match that doesn't show a lot of his flaws or or kind of hides his age and stuff, but still makes Sting look, good enough for where we give him his flowers, and that's the end of that.
Right.
I feel like that I can understand Sting and Ric Flair as far as their history goes. I can understand Sting and Hulk Hogan. Honestly, if they were younger, I might, and less controversial on the Hogan side of things. Things maybe had not gone the way they did as he got older. I think maybe it would be good to try to redo that match that didn't go the way that they wanted it, but it was really all Hulk Hogan's fault anyways. So I wouldn't give him the satisfaction now that I say it out loud. But it goes back, and I think you guys didn't mention it, but wouldn't you say if it's Ric Flair, he kind of steals some of the show. He's too much of himself, and same thing with Hogan. It would be kind of like having a retirement match with to me, I feel like those guys would try to take away from it being more of a Sting match. And they're also, to me, a liability, because what if something happens to where it does take away inadvertently? If something bad happens to those two guys, an injury or whatever, then it does kind of take away from Sting. So I like Swerve Strickland idea. I feel like, you've kept him with Darby this long. Why not keep him again and keep that element going? Maybe why not do what do you think about like a cinematic type thing like they did a year ago or so with Darby?
It's possible, but I want to jump in real quick. It's like, hey, Morgan, casual. It's like, gotcha one. It's like you talked about, like, what if they tried to recreate the magic of, that Sting Hogan matchup? It's like they did in TNA, and I assure you, like, honestly, for an TNA Impact match, it wasn't terrible. It had its moments, but I guarantee if we go back and watch it, it's like Kevin's gonna go crap on that thing, because it's like. It's like, as a casual fan, you're like, oh, they hit some things in there that are better than what that Starrcade 97 match was. But work rate wise, it's pretty awful. As a matter of fact, I think it might even stand as maybe Hogan's last one-on-one match he ever wrestled, or close to it.
So speaking of crapping on stuff, I want to circle back to last week. I believe you mentioned that the Great Muta would be a great match for Sting, and I agree. But unfortunately, Muta has retired, and I don't know if I want to see him come out of retirement to do this match. But that's not what I want to crap on. What I want to crap on is a number that I talked to you guys today about. I said, remind me, the number 29 versus the number 468. That is the difference between how many times Roman Reigns has defended the belt during his time as champion and the amount of times Hulk Hogan defended his belt in the time that he was champion. And they keep saying he's going to surpass Hulk Hogan. He's going to surpass Bruno Sammartino. But he's defended the fucking belt 29 times in 3 years. That's why I told you guys he's a paper champion. He's a manufactured 2022, 2023 champion and will never be considered a legit champion, in my opinion.
You know what my opinion on that? It's like, I think Roman Reigns is textbook exactly what the WWE has always wanted. You sold us earlier. You said you do not see him on the level of Hogan. You do not see him on the level of Austin. You don't, or Rock or Cena. And you know what? that's exactly what the WWE has always wanted. Because with those 4 guys that I mentioned previously, WWE hates it. And they won't admit they hate it, but they hate it. Vince has always hated it when a star becomes bigger than the WWE themselves. And this is exactly what WWE wants, is what Roman Reigns is. He's the biggest star in the WWE, but he's not bigger than the actual product and company itself. And that is like, yeah, you're right. He'll never achieve that level because that's never been the plan for him to achieve that level. I see Roman Reigns, even though he's going to have one of the longest and greatest title reigns of all time, he's probably on the level of Edge when the smoke clears. As far as like Hall of Fame worthy, he'll be a first ballot for sure. But
No doubt.
when it's like, and it'll end one of these days. But you're right. It's like he's not defending or fighting champion whatsoever.
No, absolutely not. And I only bring that up because and again, you guys know I don't watch WWE, but I was listening to Busted Open, and they're talking about how they're toting the fact that he's going to supersede the Bruno and the Hulk Hogan's, and it's just ridiculous in my opinion. And that's one of the reasons why I don't. That's one of the reasons why I don't watch the product. So
yeah, I don't see him beat. It's like there's only 3 championship reigns longer than Roman Reigns right now, and if I'm being personally honest, I don't see him beating any of those. He definitely will never beat Bruno Sammartino's WWE Championship reign. He would have to go, if I remember right, they did the math, like I forget what month, but he would have to hold the championship all the way to 2028 to beat Bruno's reign, and that's just not happening.
right. Yep.
Wow, this is interesting. I mean, I'm looking at because I'm a casual, so I don't know it as well as you guys. I'm looking at the recent ones, which it's weird. They don't have Roman Reigns in the even in the WWE one, they don't have Roman Reigns. But if you go,
oh, I know why. It's like because the origin of his title reign is with the Universal Championship, not the WWE Championship.
Oh, okay. So you have Bruno Sammartino, first reign 2,803 days. Now, Kevin, I think you told me that was kind of because he had to travel. It was, wasn't in the time of television and streaming like we have it now. And so they had to kind of show him off as they traveled him around the area. Is that right? Is that why he had such a long reign?
Well, that and back then it was very ethnic based. So you had your Italian American, and he was popular in that New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. So they tried like Pedro Morales was their intercontinental. So it was very ethnic based back then in the 60s and 70s. And Bruno would draw incredible houses because he was that Italian American immigrant, and that resonated with the people. It wasn't so much, I think you're thinking territorial, like a Ric Flair would go to different areas of the NWA,
Right.
and
Okay.
he would defend like against Terry Funk. He would defend against the Briscoe brothers. That was a little bit different back in the WWF. It was more of a ethnicity based promotion, and they catered to that. So that was why he was so that, and he sold out the Garden. And I'm sure you can Google this. How many times did Bruno Sammartino sell out the Garden? And it's astounding how many.
Adding in here for the casual here, it's like, hey, Morgan, you remember recording artist Bruno Mars, right?
Right.
Yeah, that dude is 100%
now,
named after Sammartino. Like, it's in his thing. Like, his father was a Sammartino fan, named his son Bruno. I mean, you talk to anybody from the New England area, like Massachusetts, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey, and all that stuff. They all, from that time period, they all talk highly of how Bruno was just this mega attraction in that area. And like you said, like Kevin said, sold the Garden out every single time. That was one of the big deals about his Hall of Fame ceremony, was they moved his Hall of Fame ceremony to Madison Square Garden so he could sell out the Garden one last time.
So he
Huh.
sold out Madison Square Garden 187 times.
He was,
That's more. This article says several. That's way more than several.
yeah. I'll tell you, if you go back, it's like if you look back in wrestling history, especially with how the WWF functioned in the Garden, it had like a UFC fight feel. Like it's like anytime Bruno's on the card, it was big match, thing that everybody had to be there for.
So I'm going
So
to
then,
introduce a new segment right now. I just thought of it. This is Did You Know with the Oracle. Did you guys
okay,
know that the Paul brothers, their father was a professional wrestler?
the Paul brothers.
Logan Paul and Jake Paul?
I
No,
did
but that
not.
makes a lot of sense.
I can see the light bulbs going on both of you. I didn't know that either, and I don't know how I ever missed that, but Logan and Jake Paul's father was a professional wrestler.
Who
You
who
know,
was he? Was he? What was his name?
Uh, he was a Paul.
Okay, yeah, that helps.
real
I
quick,
mean,
I'm going to cover this just thing since I watch Crown Jewel and because I'm the WWE guy in here. It's like whether you love them or you hate them, and you're absolutely right if you want to hate them. Logan Paul, every time he shows up, proves that kid is built for this business. He knows not just the effort he puts in the ring to give, the spots to, do the work and actually care about how good his match, is. But that man knows how to work the crowd beautifully. Like, especially since they made him more of a heel and stuff, he's a natural at this. And he's honestly in the top 5 now of like best celebrities who took up wrestling, we've found. It's like I don't know about putting the United States Championship on him because that's apparently a thing now. He's the WWE United States Champion, but when he puts on a match, man, he gives it his all. He has that Brock Lesnar big fight feel to him as a special attraction, and it's working for the WWE right now.
Gregory Allen Paul was a professional wrestler.
interesting.
That is the Paul's father. Yes, isn't it? Like I said, I didn't know that, and I heard someone. I think it might have been Busted Open. I think that's where I heard it. Over the weekend, it was he was. I want to say it was like Wisconsin area. He was like obviously a journeyman. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. And that, to your point, I mean, these kids are promoters, right? They've done very well for themselves.
That
Um,
Wisconsin Minnesota territory was a big deal back in the day too.
sure. Yep.
It's like a lot of big names came from that area.
I'm looking at you, Dad. You could have done that for me. You could have done that for me, but you didn't. Thanks, Dad. Bruno Sammartino, not really like the handsomest guy as far
No,
as like title belt.
that nose is pretty bent up, wouldn't you say?
No, but he was a
Now,
man's man when it comes to wrestling.
what's interesting is like Bob Backlund. He's number 2,135. He's more of like the he looks more like the church going dad, at least in this photo. He looks more like the clean cut white collar worker kind of guy.
That was his gimmick. He was white
Really?
He was
meat
the All
baby
American
face.
clean cut dude.
Yep.
And the funny thing about that is near the end of that championship run he suffered the same problems that Cena suffered and Hogan suffered, where the crowd just eventually began to turn on him. He didn't do anything wrong. It's just they didn't like that clean cut gimmick anymore. And if you can find this on YouTube sometime, there is a clip I've always seen where I think it's superstar Billy Graham loses the match to Backlund, and it's like, and when he does, he knocks out Backlund, and then he goes outside the ring and completely destroys Backlund's WWF Championship belt, just rips it apart. And Backlund gets out of the ring and looks at the destroyed championship, and he 100% gives you the seeds for like what would eventually become Crazy Bob Backlund. And the crowd eats it up at that time too. It's great.
Crazy Bob Backlund was fun. That was like his second spurt of his career. He tried to run for president. He would scream and yell, and it was so out of character for him to do that at that time. It just made it even more enjoyable. I did enjoy the whole crazy Bob Backlund years.
Do you ever? It's like Morgan, take that in consideration too. It's like that man held the championship through what the late '70s and early '80s.
Mhm.
Was WWF champion, and then like disappears after losing it to the Iron Sheik, basically. And then he ends up winning the WWF title for again in like 1994. There's like over a decade time between like him winning the championship here, having this mega reign, and now he's back on top, beating Bret Hart for the WWF title.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, that's got to be one unique scenario. I mean, you don't really see that where a guy just disappears and comes back. By the time they typically come back, they're so beaten and battered they can't really handle it. I got another question for you since you mentioned Crown Jewel.
Sure.
A lot of people saying they're worried about LA Knight now getting pushed back because he lost to Roman Reigns. Now a lot of people are saying, is this the end of LA Knight? Does WWE not believe that he can be the champ? That he can lead the business? Some people are saying that they're tired of his redneck version of The Rock. So there's some doubt now going on about whether or not LA Knight is even though he's still having great merchandise sales, and obviously the crowd's still with him. It seems like there's some doubt being pushed around.
So let me ask you: did you guys watch Crown Jewel? Because I didn't. I didn't read results.
I did.
I don't care. How did the finish happen in the Roman Reigns and LA Knight match? Don't tell me. LA Knight technically beat him, but Roman cheated. There was some type of interference, and then Roman finished him with whatever the fuck he's using for a move these days. Is that correct?
That is correct. Cycle repeats itself like it does every time.
So
Really?
Roman Reigns hasn't beat anyone since before WrestleMania, correct? Without having interference.
You could probably go further back than WrestleMania.
So that means that Sami Zayn has beat him, Cody Rhodes has beat him, LA Knight has beat him because
Kevin Owens 100% beat him.
Kevin Owens. Again,
Lesnar.
he's a manufactured paper champion. LA Knight. Who was LA Knight 10 months ago? He was a modeling agency with a French accent. You don't put a strap on someone that's been around for 10 months. He's not a juggernaut. He's not outselling everybody else's merchandise tenfold. Give him time.
Well,
there are other people in line.
Yeah.
And I still believe, and I don't watch, but I still believe that they're going to go with Cody and Roman at WrestleMania. Or you could have Roman get beat between now and then. And I have a theory here. And it could be by John Cena. And the reason being is WWE is pissed off at Ric Flair. Well, let's put the strap on Cena one more time, tying Ric Flair's total run. And then have Roman Reigns fight The Rock in front of the tribe. Alpha, Sika, all of the Samoans. And have him lose to The Rock and sunset.
That's strangely not a terrible idea on that.
Wait, sunset what? Roman Reigns?
Yeah, he's done anyways. That's what we're hearing, right?
I have definitely heard rumors coming through that Roman might be nearing the end of his wrestling career here due to issues and stuff that stem from his cancer scares and whatnot. I've heard it has something to do with the meds that he takes for his, leukemia that he's dealt with, have had, a strain on his body. And that's part of the reason why we don't see him all that often wrestling, which makes sense because, I heard what you were talking about with Busted Open, where they were talking about, we have the finish line and we got to do what we can. If there really is something wrong with Roman, you got to do what you got to do to make sure he makes it to the finish line
Yeah.
and such.
And what and again, I don't know, but is he not off for the rest of the year now? He's done.
Yeah,
They won't have
I
a
don't
program
think
until January, right?
I don't think he's on the Survivor Series card. I
Okay.
think this was it for him.
So
Um,
as far as Logan Paul beating Rey Mysterio, that was predicted.
yeah.
That was the only belt change that was predicted. I heard that Logan saved Rey Mysterio from a bump.
I saw that actually.
I mean, I guess I can send you the spot. Is like, I mean,
Send it to me. Let me watch it right now. Send it to me.
okay.
It looks as if he jumps off the middle rope to do a moonsault kind of backflip kind of thing. It was one of those really high arching ones, and it looks like that Logan Paul was not in a right position to catch it, and so he kind of like very last minute catches him and does a great job of keeping his balance. So it looked more like Logan Paul was saving him, but I think if he hadn't have been there, he probably would have just fell on his stomach. I do believe that. I think he had enough rotation, but it did seem like the way it ended that it saved him from landing on his,
So
forehead.
was it a blown spot by Ray or was it a blown spot by Logan?
I think it's
mean,
blown
personally,
spot
I
by
think
Ray. I will say
I guess you could go both ways.
The power Logan had to like lift him up from that was pretty impressive.
I mean, yeah, he kind of off balance grabbed him and caught him midair, but it's hard to say, who missed what without really knowing everything.
Oh, and real quick while he's watching that, Morgan, let me throw that in there back to the LA Knight thing where they said like,
yeah, you
people
need to tell me what your
who?
You need to tell me what your answer was.
Yeah, who? It's like, who had LA Knight winning that match and moving on? Come on, that didn't make any sense whatsoever. LA Knight probably will. It's like, we'll get the SmackDown, and I'll bet right now LA Knight has lost zero momentum whatsoever.
So in looking at that move, it looks like Ray knew he was not going to get caught. He put his hands out, and Jake got his torso and legs. And to your point, quite a strong kid to be able to pull him up. But I don't think that he saved him. I think it was a blown spot by Jake Paul or Logan
That's what
Paul.
I thought. That's what I thought.
And it was a good save. But yeah, I don't think he was going to come down his head and neck. He was ready to come down like a flat belly bump, more so than his head and neck. So yeah, hey.
I think Logan should have been. I think Logan should have been maybe 2 or 3 feet closer, and then it would have been a more natural catch.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I think he probably should have caught him into a move, but it didn't work out. Hey, here's something I just randomly thought. You were talking about different segments, and I think we should continue with that. I've been trying to do this on my other things that I do, like have certain segments for things, and so keep up with that, Kevin. I'm going to put you in charge of the, something you didn't know or whatever you call it.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, so let me throw this one at you. Because I love to get your guys' history, right? So November, let's see, it's November 6th. I've got November 7th up. I was gonna do this day in wrestling history, November 6th. Okay, you ready for this?
Sure.
1994, breaking When Worlds Collide pay-per-view at Los Angeles Sports Arena. Do you remember that one? I don't know much about that one.
AAA and WCW.
1998, an ECW taping of New York City. The Dudley Boys won their 5th ECW Tag Team Championship by defeating Balls Mahoney and Masato Tanaka.
Rest in peace, Balls.
2000 Monday Night Raw, The Godfather and Bull Buchanan of Right to Censor defeated the Hardy Boys for the Tag Championship.
Oh God,
the Godfather, Papa Shango. What was his shoot fighter name? He had a shoot fighting gimmick as well.
Kama, the Supreme Fighting Machine.
There you go. Charles. Yeah. They found him in a strip club, and he still owns a strip club, to the best of my knowledge.
2002, Jerry Lynn defeats AJ Styles to win the TNA X Division Championship.
Mr. JL himself, under the hood in WCW, made his name for himself in ECW, and then went on to TNA, and he's now one of the head bookers for AEW.
2003, Mike Lockwood, best known for Crash Holly, passed away at 32.
Rest in peace,
Yeah.
Crash.
Man, like, there's actually a string of people in the 2002, 2003 era where weirdly a bunch of these guys had what was basically their final match in TNA Impact. And he's one of them. Kurt Hennig, I know, was one, and there's somebody else I'm forgetting. Candido, that's what Candido was one. Hennig, Crash Holly, all those guys like passed away around that time working for TNA.
So, if you watch the WWE event, do you believe that Cena is retiring based off that Saudi match? Do you think he's going to say
Absolutely
goodbye
not.
in Saudi? Okay.
Nope.
So
It's like I think the best case of when he says like if he's walking away, it's not because he's decided it's time to hang up. It's because the writer's strike is basically over and it's time for him to head back to Hollywood.
I got a great chuckle last week when Excalibur had to read the snippet for, what was it, Wipeout?
Yeah,
And
Wipeout.
John Cena in a new episode of Wipeout, and then even Taz is like, "Who? That John
I
Cena
think
guy."
Cassidy said like I know that guy.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of funny. So
Linda McMahon lost her race for the U.S. Senate in 2012 on today.
I remember that.
But then she got a seat in Trump's cabinet.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, with the Small Business Association.
Yeah.
Joey Styles was surprisingly named the play-by-play guy for Monday Night Raw in 2005 on this day.
I miss Joey. I wonder what he's doing. Like, what is he currently doing?
You know what? It's like he was in that category of everyone, like in Monday Night Raw, always bitching and complaining because it's not JR and the King. But the fact of the matter, Joey Styles was actually good at commentary. I know he always made a big deal about the fact during ECW he called the shows entirely by himself, but honestly, him and JR and Joey Styles wasn't a bad combination. Joey Styles is a top tier commentator. I always thought his work was good.
Yeah, he was actually at one point in charge of WWE.com or WWF.com.
Yes.
I'm looking at a current image, and it's funny, the page is called Ring the Damn Bell. He has not aged gracefully. I would be hard pressed to say it was him if I ran into him on the street.
Huh. He'd be another one, like, get a podcast for him. I'm sure he's got great stories.
Yeah, I don't know if he's in the business anymore though. And it might be one of those things where like I'm done with it.
Yeah, but to the defense on that one, when they found Tony Schiavone for a podcast, he was working at a Starbucks. Sometimes the business has that lure where, just sit there, talk about it. Next thing you know, you're the lead commentator for Collision.
Yeah, true. Speaking of Collision, do we want to jump to that?
Sure.
We want to talk about Dynamite?
Oh,
well, I wanted to get into the AEW Sega partnership and see what you guys think. So AEW has gotten, crossover deals in the past with like DraftKings and Warner Brothers. Now, Kenny Omega loves video games and helped create AEW's Fight Forever. But we just found out that they have a deal with Sega that will call for them to give some extra attention to a match coming up. As we found out online, I guess today or this week, that the match with Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, Paul White, and Kota Ibushi, the tag match, we're told that the content has been filmed to promote it, and that we're learning that Sega is a major sponsor in this matchup. AEW obviously looking for ways to increase their revenue, increase their viewership, and maybe even increase their popularity among demographics, right? They're trying anything they can. Thoughts on this? Is this a good thing, bad thing, or more of a meh?
Anything that brings in money is a good thing.
Mid-match, are they gonna jump through golden hoops, and is Sonic the Hedgehog gonna come flying down the ring? I'd like to see that.
I
First of all,
do feel like that somebody's going to be dressed up as I think, Kenny Omega is one of those guys that does dress up almost all the time. So why wouldn't they? I mean, how many Sega characters have they already dressed up as?
Who owns? Isn't Konami Street Fighter? Or
no, that's Capcom.
who's okay? So Sega has a fighting game. Is it Virtua Fighter?
Virtua Fighter, that is them.
Okay, because I know that Kenny's a big
Fighting. Yeah, he loves his fighting games, but he's big with Street Fighter.
Yes, yeah.
Heck, you saw that on, what was it, the Halloween edition of, what was it, Collision, with his, pink and black outfit was an alternate character design from one of the Street Fighter 6 characters.
Yeah, when Paul White, it was so odd the way that they filmed and the way that he appeared. It was almost like he was being propped up. I mean, the man has bad knees, we know that. He's coming off some type of injury as well. He was injured for almost a year. He's another one. I don't care to see him. I don't care to see him bump. I don't.
Look at that footage when he's standing there on the aisle, and look at his legs and his hip and back placement.
Yeah, it looked like he was being propped up. Right.
Yeah, like he's standing so weird and awkwardly, and I know that that's the way he's standing in order to prop himself up. And then he doesn't I was figuring he was going to walk down the aisle.
They filmed that.
There, I'm and I immediately knew this guy isn't mobile. It's
they filmed it for that reason at that angle because he didn't move. Everybody came to him and they bumped for him, but he didn't move. And you're right, his right foot is dig-toed, and it's got a bend in, almost like he's bow-legged, but reverse of bow-leg, whatever that is. Knee, what are they? Knock knees? I think that's what it's called. Yeah, knock-kneed. He doesn't look healthy.
Yeah, it was one of those. As soon as that segment was over, it's they said, "Oh, he's in this match," and I'm he may not need to be in this match. And if he is in this match, I can already guarantee he's going to do the bare minimum.
Yeah. Yep. Attraction. He's an attraction, kind of like an Andre.
This makes me. It's if I can transition into the other one where it's like you said, Ric Flair's back, and we saw Ric Flair come back, and we were all okay, Ric Flair's back. I'm happy to see Rick, in AEW. It's all great. And then we find out the man signed a multi-year deal. And
it's a 2-year, multi-million-dollar, and they're gonna bring his Woo drink as the official energy drink of AEW. So there's bi-directional happiness here, so to speak. But once we get past this Sting thing, what do you have him do? And I've heard this brought up numerous times. I would love to hear him and MJF go at it on the mic. Give him a live mic. Go ahead.
Yeah, he wasn't saying it's I hear what you're saying, but he was saying I think I could go. It's I'm cleared to take some bumps. I think I could take one more match against MJF. And MJF, of course, replied in typical MJF response with, what, a buried alive match?
Yeah, I would like to see a verbal confrontation between those two.
Personally, I don't want to see any of Ric Flair. I'm just going to put that out there. I mean, if I want to see a Flair, I want to see Charlotte Flair.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm fine with Flair. As long as Flair doesn't step in the ring and say, "Hey, I want to have one more match," I'm fine with that. Look, I'll pray to the wrestling gods on this one. You can bring Flair back and let Flair be a part of the wrestling thing, and I'm fine and I'm okay with that as long as he doesn't wrestle. Just, Tony, whatever you do not bring the Orange Goblin back. It's we do not need Hulk Hogan. It's there are so many parts of wrestling history that you can look back and say, the second you bring this guy into your company is the second your company's going to start dying a slow, painful death. The man is a parasite to all wrestling companies now.
It's funny. He's the proverbial jump the shark for professional wrestling.
You're not wrong on that one. It's what it's the best example will at this point be TNA Wrestling. They brought him in with all this hype and all this fanfare, and he killed that company so quickly. All of its momentum just dead in the water because he can't help himself. If he shows up in a company And if we see the same thing, we're like, oh, he signed a 2-year deal with, AEW, and he's going to work with him on this. So I was like, AEW, it's like by the end of that 2 years, he's going to make that entire company all about him.
That's what he does.
That's exactly what he does. He can't stand not being the main focus of the company.
Did you guys see the micro brawler of boy, don't get old, guys. Just don't get old.
Too late.
Yeah.
I saw the one of Tony Storm, by the way, and
Storm,
I
yes.
really
Tony
wanted
Storm.
to get it.
So I have the Ric Flair where he's bleeding. I think I'm going to order the Tony Forever. What is it? Timeless Tony Storm. Timeless
Please
Tony
tell me
Storm.
it's
Yeah, I
black
think
and
I
white.
want the Timeless Tony.
It is.
Just the fact that it's black
sepia
and white.
tone. Yeah, it's sepia
There
tone.
we go.
Yep.
And
One other fun thing I saw this week was I saw AEW, which again, if you guys aren't watching that, it's such a good 10-minute like guilty pleasure on a Sunday morning. He interviews Miro, and it's very, very good. Very good. Miro's an intelligent dude, and he's out of
Yes, he
character.
is.
He's out of character. He talks about history.
that's
He
good.
uses some pretty big words. He never talks. He never says
Flexible's a big
Lana.
word.
They talked about having sex in the tank, and that was a recurring theme in the
In
conversation.
the tank?
Yeah, at WrestleMania.
You not hear this story?
No.
That and he's thinking about doing an OnlyFans for his feet. But again, I'll tease it. You guys need to go watch AEW
You're
with Miro,
ruining it.
because about 14 minutes of just gold. I really like RJ City. I think he's fantastic, and I enjoyed it. Excuse me.
Yeah, Rusev and Lana. It's like WrestleMania entrance. I think it was WrestleMania 31, where they came out, with Rusev riding in a tank. And the night before, apparently Rusev and Lana totally banged in the tank. And he said it. Lana's confirmed it. Or CJ Perry, excuse me. It's like has confirmed.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
what?
that happened.
What? We're gonna have to edit that. We can't say CJ. We can't say her name on the air.
No, you can't. I'm fine. Nobody's.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't put your rules on us. I mean,
That's
we
like,
didn't do
nobody's-
anything wrong here.
Nobody's filed any litigation against me, pal.
Just because you can't drive doesn't mean we can't drive. Okay.
I'm just telling a story that she's admitted was true. Nothing wrong there.
Speaking of driving, Nick Wayne's mom can drive.
Oh my God.
There we go.
Here we go.
There's
This
gotta be
always
one
happens.
obligatory shot
We-
in. There it is.
We give him like the biggest softball possible. It's like just he's waiting for it for 40 minutes now. Since we're 40 minutes into it, talking about literally whatever we want to talk about, which I hope if you're listening, you're enjoying this.
Can I pause for just 1 second?
Sure.
Spence, you can't drink the whole jug of NyQuil, right? You've been hitting on that NyQuil since we started the show.
Yeah. Man's got to sleep somehow.
He's
you know
gonna
what happens
sleep.
when you drink. So I have a friend that did this. He drank a whole damn jug of NyQuil. What is that you're drinking?
That's Perrier.
Whoop.
No, I'm drinking the Pellegrino. What are you drinking?
Okay.
Morgan, what is this? It's one of those
Oh,
healthy.
it's kombucha.
Oh,
It's one of those
whatever.
healthy probiotic drinks. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, well, we want to make sure you're regular, just like
You know
this
what
podcast is regular.
You know that's made with a fermented mushroom, yes?
no, I'd rather not know what's in it. I really wouldn't. I know it's
That's
supposed
what
to be healthy
kombucha
for me,
is.
and it tastes like crap.
That's what kombucha is. But
I don't know.
I really do have a friend that drank a whole bottle of NyQuil, and he told me it's not as fun as you think. It puts you to sleep, and then you wake up screaming, and then fall back to sleep. And you wake up screaming, and you fall back to sleep. He's like, I was jacked up for 2 days.
I don't need NyQuil for that.
Friend. Has your friend ever tried drinking Dayquil and NyQuil simultaneously? Because I can only assume that's got to be some form of hell.
They're out of phase. They cancel each other out.
Yeah, that's what I figured. It's like they cancel each other out, and you're just in some sort of like nightmare scenario where you're awake and you can't fall asleep.
Here's another fun fact. With the Oracle. Did you know that when someone throws up on a gravitron, you know what a gravitron is? It's that circular ride that lifts, and then the vomit stays suspended in the air until the ride slows, and it's like Russian roulette who gets it in the face. I always thought it just came out sideways and everybody near you got it. No, It literally stays in space until the ride slows down. I just learned this before we jumped on this podcast. So again, another fun fact with the Oracle.
I'm going to need a video of this.
Yeah, somebody has to have this on the. It's like YouTube has got this somewhere. Like, not only that, but like, not only does video this have to exist, but there has to be a group of bros who like did this. Like, one of us is gonna puke, and we're gonna play Russian roulette on the Gravitron.
The problem with that is even if you're rotating, you wouldn't be able to catch it on the camera because it's literally hanging out in space. And when I say space, it's a foot in front of the person's face or whatever have you. I don't understand. And again, to your point, I would love to see it, but the guy explained it and why it happens the way it happens. It was a dumb YouTube channel that I followed down the rabbit hole, but he's like, it will actually come out of the person, but just it stays suspended from the centrifugal force until the ride slows, in which it returns back to just like you do when you drop down. I just thought it was very fascinating. So again, fun facts with the Oracle.
I say I want to see this, but in reality, I don't.
Right.
Let's face it. It's like I don't do good with.
Yeah, I don't
I'm one
really
of
want
those
to see
horrible
it.
people that will chain reaction vomit if I see.
I got a great plane story, but I won't share it now.
Jeez.
Uh,
Well,
So I need. It's like, so let's just put that out there. It's like, if we're ever out, dinner or something like that, I need you not to get absolutely shit-faced drunk, because it's like, if you're gonna puke, you're not my friend right now.
in 2015, I flew 72 flights, and I may have thrown up on one of those flights. I'll leave it at
well, thank you
It's
for
like,
sharing.
it's
that.
bound to at some point, man.
Right? It's the odds game, right? The more you do
Yeah,
it,
I mean,
the
like,
more.
we've
Yeah.
flown that many flights, and somebody's yacked on one of those flights.
Oh, for sure.
So
I've been on
after-
flights with people throw up, but I threw up once. But anyways, I digress, as Taz would say.
we're past 15 minutes to go. There should have been like a bell. We need a bell or something to
No. We're
15,
still in good
15
time
minute
here.
time
Let's do it.
remaining.
Hey, you know who I'm happy to see back?
Hmm.
Mark Briscoe.
Yeah. Wasn't that on Rampage?
Froggy Bow. It was on Collision. He
Okay.
did an interview with Lexi Nair, and Lexi Nair looks legitimately confused by what the hell he's saying, which I just find hilarious.
But that's good. That's good Mark Briscoe, yo.
Yeah, and who is he tagging up with? I forget. People that you wouldn't expect him to tag up with. He's going to do a 6-man with 2 lesser known wrestlers, and I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but
Well, let me
yeah,
do a
I'm happy.
rundown of Collision real quick, and we'll get through it. Maybe
right.
we'll get to it.
Hey, real quick on the Collision thing, Morgan. It's like, love the intro they did for Collision this week, where they're doing the typical, like, how we're doing it, like the Saturday Night Main Event thing, where like,
Yeah, I like it.
this is the match, and like Swerve's in there talking about his match and stuff, and then that's when AR Fox comes and blindsides him, hits him, and then it cuts to the Collision intro with the graphics and stuff, and we come back and the pyro's going off, and the two of them are like brawling down the aisle as the like pyro's going off with and the match just starts straight there. I'm like, I'm glad they finally got around to doing this, and I love it.
I like it. It reminds me of being as a kid, the way they did it. I thought it was really cool, where everybody had their own like mini promo before the show got started. And as you mentioned, it kind of connected in. Starting up with AR Fox versus Swerve Strickland, I thought it was a very good matchup overall. I think both these guys are extremely talented. I would give it a solid score in my opinion, especially like you said from the transition at the beginning. So, what are your thoughts on that? The first match of the night.
Good match, and like I've said before and time again, it's like I think Swerve is the next main event star for this company.
Yeah, I liked Fox jumping him for the start of the show. Like you guys said, it felt like it was a legit, okay, these guys really want to fight. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good match. There was a bump in which Fox took on the apron over the top rope and they didn't replay it. It looked hellacious and they never replayed it, which I was upset by. But I enjoyed the match. I really did. It was very good. I will admittedly say that I was flipping between Collision and the Xfinity race, but I watched most of Collision and I definitely enjoyed that opening match for sure. So
it's like another thing you pointed out real quick, Kevin, that we were talking about is like I was out after Collision touting about how I see It's like I keep telling you that like Swerve I see is probably one of the next big things in AEW. You reply by the end of it saying that like after that, what was it, an 8-man match, that you see Roosh is being one of the next big things in this company.
Well, we have to set up the next pay-per-view, right? So we have a
Yes.
pay-per-view in November, then we have a pay-per-view in December, which is at the Agganis Arena, I think. It's New York, whatever the New York pay. It's like December 30th, if I'm not mistaken. It's their last pay-per-view of the year. So you have to kind of start angles, and you have to get people that are going to continue to carry that torch. Again, we have injuries, we're losing people. Darby Allin's going away. So you have to get that next set of stars, and we're just starting that program with Swerve. And it's clear to me that they have very big plans for Roosh. So much so that Shivani even said, quote unquote, the chains are off. So
He's a bad dude when the chains are off, though. It's like
who's his brother again? I can't recall. It's another
Dragon Lee, isn't it?
okay, there you go, Dragon Lee. I couldn't remember who his brother was. Yeah, there's a different mentality to his matches. It looks stiff because it is stiff. It's an old Stan Hansen, Murdoch, Terry Funk, Cactus Jacks. They're legit and they don't care.
And there a
You know, if you look at Ricky Starks, there is twice during the time that he's fighting that he is out on his feet. It's clear either that or he's a really good actor because
yeah,
he's like stumbling and Roosh is just manhandling him.
yeah, I was about to say, wasn't there a match not that long ago, maybe a couple months before, like a month or so before All In, or before the heel turn happened, where like Jungle Boy is fighting Roosh, and I mean Roosh just murders him.
Yeah, ragdolled him. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like one of those, like I remember watching that match, and it's like this is a textbook example of how not to wrestle, in your 40s, because Jungle Boy, the way he bumped around that ring, didn't look like a guy that was going to make it wrestling in his 40s.
Right. What do we have after that? I think there was
So you had a squash match with the Kingdom, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, with some jobbers, just local guys.
Mhm.
And then you had Jake Roberts and Lance Archer. Jake Roberts, I hadn't seen him in a while, I don't think. It was kind of interesting. He fought Darby Allin.
So whenever somebody says Jake Roberts, in my head, it always goes, "Ooh, Jake Roberts!" Rest in peace, Percy Pringle.
It's like,
Yeah,
Jake,
I missed that one.
Was Jake with, he was with Lance Archer. And wasn't there, who was that team that was with, I saw with Jake Roberts too, wasn't there?
Yeah, it
He had
was
like
the
a tag team with them.
team that MJF squashed.
Yeah, those guys again.
Right?
The Bray Wyatt / Rob Zombie guy.
Gotta have them do something. They've already
Hey,
jobbed,
man.
so yeah.
Judging by the looks of those dudes, it's like they're probably super happy to be paired up with Jake Roberts.
Yeah, yeah. A typical Murderhawk monster match. It was good. And again, there was a bump that Darby took that they didn't replay that I wish they had. That is a complaint I have about Collision. Like, if something spectacular happens, show it to me again. Don't just keep rolling. You covered it. Go back and show it as a high spot. That's where I think WWE eats their lunch, eats AEW's lunch. Their production is not as good as, and it's not on par with WWE, in my opinion.
Yeah, Impact was also good about that back in the day too. Like especially with the X division, they knew with that X division that they had to have somebody on standby, every second for show replay, because those guys were always showing out.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, I thought that was a good match.
Next up, we got the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass versus Dalton Castle and the Boys for the Trios title. I thought it was kind of interesting. I mean, there was no way the Boys were going to win. So, and it was funny. I think, just to see them. I always liked Dalton Castle. Ever since I saw him in person, I think he's a pretty good talent to have.
Is Dalton going heel?
Well, I mean, he smashed the trophy, right?
Yeah, and like he threw a fit after the match was over, backstage. Like, are we doing this as a heel?
Well, it was interesting. So they have him job, which bothered me, but then he got his comeuppance by having that backstage meltdown, which means he's going to be in an angle. and I'm happy for him.
I'm happy about it too.
My wife saw him. My wife saw him for the first time, and she said, "Is this the new Gold Dust?" And I'm like, you know what? That's interesting. He definitely has some striking similarities to the Gold Dust character. So
He's a fun character. And
yeah,
also, if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember if it was Dynamite. Speaking of fun characters, I don't know if it was Dynamite or one of those shows where they did the thing with Danhausen, where they said like the return of Danhausen, and he walks by, he's like, no, I was mistaken. Next week, and walks by, and that was the end
I
of that.
missed that because
Yeah.
I love me some Danhausen. Yeah.
Yeah, he comes back in and was like, nope, I was mistaken. Danhausen got it wrong. Next week, see you then, and then walks away. They're like, okay, next week, the return of Danhausen.
Next up, you've got the Sex Stallions versus Mark Briscoe, Dustin Rhodes, and Keith Lee.
Those are the guys.
Kip Sabian nicknamed himself and the Workhorsemen as the Sex Stallions in a backstage segment before. So Sabian, JD Drake, and Anthony Henry. I don't really think I paid attention to this match that much, to be honest. Sorry.
I didn't see this match because I think there was something going on in the Xfinity race, but I knew that Mark had said he was going to team up with a couple of odd dudes. Didn't Dustin retire like 3 months ago or whatever have you? Wasn't that his last match? And then he came back for some battle royal for the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and now he's having regular matches again? Why? Just go away. These guys
Kip
can't.
Sabian is one of those guys too that I'm like, back when they were in COVID, he was used a ton, and now he's not really used at all. Same thing with Penelope Ford, used a ton, now not used at all. She's not. I mean, I don't know if they're injured or what, but man, it's like you keep them around to do nothing.
They're married, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Wasn't it like a few months ago that like we had Dustin Rhodes teaming up with like Keith Lee for like absolutely no reason, but it's a thing? Ooh, which reminds me, I think they announced that one too, that the ROH TV title match. We're getting Samoa Joe and Keith Lee in a match. Granted, yes. I wish this had more of a build-up, but boy, howdy, that's going to be fun.
Actually, as I sat and watched Collision, I noticed or recognized the fact that they're really building up Dynamite for this Wednesday night. There were some significant matches that are going to be on Wednesday night. I don't recall off the top of my head, and I don't want to take a guess, but I'm sure our producer Morgan will pull it up and tell us exactly what's going. Yeah, tell us exactly what's going to happen Wednesday night. But there's some big matches.
I'll look up the Dynamite card. Next one is Willow Nightingale and Emi Sakura. That one's kind of a one that I'm just not really interested in.
Yeah, all I saw was Willow got the win, and that was all I saw.
And Willow's clearly not turning heel either. It's like I think whatever they were trying to do with Julia Hart, they've moved on with Willow. Sky Blue, they did kind of an angle there, but I'm not ruling that one out because you still got the makeup all on her.
That was a nice swerve for me.
Out of it.
Yes, that was a nice swerve for me. I figured they were going to go full turn with her being a heel, and they swerved me on that one. I enjoyed the fact that they didn't do that right away. So good on them.
Looks like AEW coming up is MJF versus Daniel Garcia.
Yeah, that's going to be a good match, but there was another match that was announced that caught my eye, and there's a few matches announced.
Sting and Darby Allin versus the Outrunners.
Nope. I don't even know who the Outrunners are.
Sheeta versus and Tony Storm sit down in an interview.
No.
Red Velvet Julia Hart.
Nope.
Briscoe Jay White.
Briscoe Jay White was one.
Swerve and Penta.
Yes, Penta. Yes, and there was
Samoa Joe and Keith Lee.
Joe. There you go. Samoa Joe and Keith Lee. Yes, those. So the Briscoe match and the Keith Lee match is what I'm looking forward to. Those two big meaty men slapping meat. That's what that is.
Oh, you'll get that out of that match. I think Swerve and Penta will be a fantastic match too.
Definitely.
It's actually, yeah, like you said, when you look at the graphic, it's all around pretty decent. Daniel Garcia is not going to have I don't think he's amazing, but he's not going to have, he's going to have an entertaining match, if anything.
Call it now. He's going to do he's going to do the dance and run right into a kangaroo kick.
So let's rewind,
Prediction
and I'm,
now.
I'm I'm guessing 6 months, but it was less than 6 months. What changed to put MJF on your TV every week?
I think the ratings are issue.
I
It's
think
one of those
they're
things like,
going with the angle of I'm so tired, I'm beat down, and that's why Adam Cole beat me.
it's like
Well,
that,
yeah,
and
there
like,
could be that.
hey, you know what's funny about that is we've already told that story to an extent, because that was Orange Cassidy just the majority of this year. Is I'm beat up, I'm wrestling every week, I'm beat up, I'm tired, and then finally meeting his eventual end at the hands of Mox.
Prior to 5 months or 6 months ago, and this is when I believe that MJF renewed his contract, he was in once every 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, he would have a match. He would speak, he would be on TV, he would say something. But now the dude's having a match twice a week. Like, what changed? Like, why this big differentiator? Why is he on our TV so much? Like I said, last week episode, he was on 38 minutes in the opening episode. But anyways, we talked about that last week. I just think that they're building a slow burn story where he's going to get to the point where he's burnt out, and that's when Adam Cole's going to take the belt.
Agreed. I think there's something to this as part of the angle. If not, you were talking about like the thing that MJF did, with Kenny Omega behind the scenes and stuff. Where it was talking about Omega talked about how MJF, is one of those guys that like I can see carrying the torch. I've always kind of wondered that. It's like when they said that, it was like, Cody and MJF are pretty close. And Cody built this company on the idea of making a healthy alternative to the WWE and whatnot. It's like, I always wondered, it's like, if Cody told MJF, like, hey, man, I'm leaving for the WWE, but maybe you can carry the torch for this company now.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems odd to me.
But I'm with you on one thing. I don't think the bidding war of 2024 is actually a thing. I'd be surprised to hear MJF leaving the company next year.
Yeah.
Last but
again-
not least, FTR and LFI versus Big Bill, Ricky Starks, and Gates of Agony. Pretty interesting pairing there with 8-man. Roosh, Preston Vance, Ricky Starks, Gates of Agony. Thoughts on that one? And why they matched them up that way?
Yeah, Preston against Big Bill. That was another scenario where I think Preston might have got his bell rung. I do not enjoy Preston Vance. He is not very good. I don't have any character. Why is he in Los Ingobernables de Jalapon? He's obviously a white meat babyface. He's American. He doesn't look Spanish at all. Maybe I'm wrong, but Vance, the last I checked, was not a Spanish or an ethnic name, in my opinion. It's more Vance is more German, if anything. It makes no sense why he's in that, and I'm being force fed. He didn't work in the
Dark Order.
Dark Order. Took a mask off. Now he's part of this. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Fun fact,
wait a
you
minute,
also
he's
notice how
10?
he looked like an absolute shrimp compared to Big Bill.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yep.
So
that didn't do
he's
any
10.
favors.
He was 10, yes.
He was 10. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Press 10.
Yeah.
Vance.
I don't. Let me say something here, guys.
Sure.
Give me the mic. Give me the mic. Cut my music. I miss the old AEW. I mean, I used to want to watch BTE every single week. I used to wait. I used to have a notification bell. And now you don't really get any of that anymore. I could not wait to see what crazy match Chris Jericho was going to do and what craziness Kenny Omega and Don Callis were going to get into, and the Young Bucks and the amazing matches and spots they were going to do in their tag team match or whatever. And then also the Dark Order and like the story with Hangman and the alcoholism and all this stuff. And then, the women's wrestling and breaking Britt Baker's nose and stuff. Like, there was so much stuff that, like, and then like the best friends and the parking lot and grandma in our mom in the car or in the van, right? Sue in the van. And like, it feels like that's all gone in a lot of ways. Like my that piece of storytelling for those different groups where each one of them was compelling me to come back and see what the next thing was going to happen. They've lost it for me.
So, Morgan, the iPhone 6, the iPhone 10, the iPhone 15. Have you cared since the 10? Things change. Sometimes they don't change a lot. Sometimes they change completely. The iPhone was a game changer. When
And some
AEW broke on the scene, they were a game changer. There's just nothing that you're interested in right now, and that's fine. There will be things that you will become interested in again in the future, but you have to change. The business change, the world changes, you have to change with it. If you always do the same, you're always going to get the same result, and that doesn't necessarily keep your audience week to week. So that's why I think things have to change.
The funny thing about AEW, real quick, before we're done here, it's like, have you ever? I don't know if you noticed this, Kevin, but it's like every year of AEW seems completely different from the other years of AEW. Like, 2019 AEW is completely different from 2020 AEW, which is completely different from 2021 AEW, which is different from 2022 and 2023 AEW. They're all,
So let me ask you,
yeah,
John Cena 2015 is any different than John Cena 2019?
not really.
Roman Reigns 2021 any different than Roman Reigns 2023?
Not really.
Morgan, go back to watching WWE. It's what you want.
It's like,
I
but I
mean,
would tell you, it's like
I'm
20.
telling you, they're. I worry that they're losing what was fun about it. I really
20
do. I mean,
I was gonna say 2019 Orange Cassidy is different from 2023 Orange Cassidy. 2020 John Moxley is different from 2023 John Moxley. It's 2019 Hangman is completely different from 2020 Hangman, which is completely different from 2021 Hangman. It's like, I hate to say it, but
2023
Kevin's right. It's
Hangman
like
is
there's
basically,
actual character development here, as opposed to riding the wave of momentum. And of course, I'll obligatorily say it. It's like, sometimes there's always change involved. And sometimes that change also involves when your company, builds everything behind this one guy that is completely unreliable and a backstage problem and leaves the company.
yeah, that was a big issue. And I'm gonna buck on this. I don't think that Hangman is character has changed. I think he's, if anything, lost his character. I mean, I feel like a lot of characters have lost their character, and a lot of new characters that are coming on don't even really get them started. I mean, they're not relevant enough to get started. I mean, think about Miro. I mean, I know that they're building something, but it's, if anything, talk about slow burn. I mean, it is definitely slow. And, he has been around for quite some time and just finally getting some foothold in something. And even that is barely going. But again, it's just, I don't know.
So
I mean, I'm in a
let's
low spot with AEW right now, personally.
let's go back 7 minutes ago. MJF is almost a complete story arc at this point. He went from scumbag dreg of society to appearing to be a decent guy. Now that is change. Do you want to still consider him the devil? Do you want to consider the fact that he only shows up once a month to wrestle and he talks a couple of times? Like, what do you want, Morgan? How would you change? How would you change MJF right now?
I'm not saying that I would necessarily change him. I'm not saying that they do everything bad, but it just seems like the AEW that we started out with has in my opinion, some ways changed for the better, but also in some ways changed for the worse. And I do think Drew is right in saying that it did seem like for the past year they heavily relied on a guy who is now no longer with the company, and that's hurt them.
I was gonna say, Kev, I think I figured out what the problem is. It's like what Morgan's mad about. Like Morgan's, problem is we're out of the honeymoon phase with AEW.
Yeah, the rose is off the bloom.
Yeah,
The bloom is
we're,
off the rose.
We're in real business now, as opposed to it's no longer the new, fresh, exciting thing.
Sure, it's not the shiny toy anymore.
Yeah,
I get it. Yep. But, gentlemen, another great show.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys. I think it was good discussion. We had a lot of roundtable, and then we got into AEW Collision. And I hope if you're listening out there, you enjoyed the show. And make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening to us, and give us some good ratings out there. If you liked the show, we really would appreciate that. Or any kind of feedback over on Spotify would be amazing for us. So thank you again. On behalf of myself, the Oracle, and the Bret Hart apologist, we will see you next week. And this is And Still, a Wrestling Podcast.